What's up, Stitches? Welcome to the Ranney Knits podcast. This is a knitting podcast and my name is Justine. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am very excited because I get to share with you two projects that I have been keeping secret for at least a month, maybe more. No, it's definitely been more than a month. We have made it through Christmas and now we get to share all those projects that we've been keeping secret for so long because they've already been gifted. First of all, let me tell you what I am wearing. This is the Weekender sweater by Andrea Mowry and I knit it in Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Nimbus Gray. This is one of my favorite sweaters because it is one of the most comfortable sweaters that I've knit. It has a lot of positive ease and I think it really looks great on a lot of different body types. So after seeing this Weekender that I made, a person who is very near and dear to me asked me if I would maybe be interested in knitting two more Weekenders for her daughter and her daughter's girlfriend. And because I think this is such a great pattern and because I love these people very, very much, I said yes, of course. So I want to show those sweaters to you today. Now, I didn't make two Weekenders. We ended up finding a different pattern because of the yarn choice that we made. We ended up doing a different pattern for the second sweater, but the first one is a Weekender. I do have a Ravelry project page for this sweater and all the information that everything that I did on it can be found in that project page. So I started this mid-November and I was done before December. I'm not exactly sure how long this one took me, but she asked if I could knit a navy version of the Weekender. So these have not been gifted yet, and that's why I still have them. Although, I mean, they haven't been gifted yet, so technically I could still take them and run. They're very nice sweaters. They're hand knit, of course they're going to be nice. This is knit in Cascade 220 Superwash. Obviously it's not this color, but this is a... So Cascade 220 is a worsted weight, but there's Superwash 220 is a little bit lighter. It's more like a DK weight. It's kind of an in-between, like either heavy DK or very lightly worsted. So the Weekender calls for worsted weight yarn, and instead of getting a very loose gauge with this this yarn, I decided to swatch and get a gauge that I like and then just alter the size. So follow the instructions to get the size that I want. So the Weekender as written is kind of at a looser gauge, at least for how mine worked out. This one in the Malabrigo Rios, I did get gauge, and I'm not exactly sure if I got gauge with the recommended needle, but it's pretty loose. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the poke test, but when you knit sweaters, apparently, ideally, you're not supposed to be able to stick your little finger in between the stitches. So, like, this definitely does not pass the poke test. It is very loose. I think the reason a lot of people hesitate to knit the Weekender is because of this neckline. It is pretty wide, and you know, if you have straps, it'll show the straps, it'll show whatever's underneath. Personally, I really like this neckline, but if you don't, you know. But it has stretched quite a bit since I first knit this, after wearing it for a little while, and I think that's partially due to the loose gauge. The other thing about sweaters that don't pass the poke test is they do get a little saggy. Like, can't really see, there's a little bit of sagging in the elbows where, you know, it gets stretched a lot, and so it kind of it's just a little bit saggy in my elbows. But that doesn't bother me in the least. If it ever did, you could probably devise some sort of elbow patch or something, but I personally really like it kind of drapey and comfortable. Whether it holds up against the test of time, we'll see. But for this one, we talked about having a little bit more of a denser knit fabric, just so it would be a little bit warmer and a little bit more sturdy. I knit the majority of this sweater on a US 6, so it does have a little bit of a tighter gauge on it. And it's still, see, it still doesn't quite pass the poke test, but it is a lot more tightly knit than this weekender that I'm wearing. So in order to compensate for the difference in my gauge, I knit the size medium and achieved about a size small in the dimensions. This is just a little bit bigger than a size small, which is quite big. The weekender does have quite a bit of positive ease. So it's a great one if you're not really sure what size to make, just because there's a lot of extra positive ease in case that person is a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than what you thought, if you're trying to guess. I think it's a great sweater to knit. So I'm going to try this on, of course, just to give you an idea of how it turned out. So the neckline on this weekender is a little bit smaller. It's a little bit tighter around the neck, but it still has plenty of positive ease here. I did adjust the sleeves quite a bit because my row gauge was significantly different. So I ended up having to do the decreases further apart, and I did add an extra probably 1.5 inches to the sleeves just so that they weren't like too short. But yeah, this is the second weekender that I've knit. I like it in this tighter gauge. I love the weekender that I knit in the Malabrigo Rios, but it is a little bit slouchier. This one feels just a little bit dressier and nicer. Like I would still wear this one to a Christmas party, but this weekender just feels a little bit more fancy. I'm super happy with it. I hope she loves it. Fingers crossed. If she doesn't, she can always just give it back to me. I'll take it. No problem. These sweaters were originally going to be both weekenders, like I said, but the yarn that she chose for the second one, so I picked the Cascade 220 Superwash and got started on that, and she chose this Ella Ray Superwash Chunky Merino. I think that's what it's called. And this is the Rainforest Heather colorway. It is a dark forest green with red running through it. I don't know if you can see, you can kind of see the red. It's kind of very nice red and green, very holiday appropriate color. So I considered altering the weekender pattern to make it work for a chunky weight. But then I saw this pattern by Heidi Kermeyer. Sorry, I should know this. And it was already written for a chunky weight, so I thought maybe that would be a little bit easier to just not have to do all the math. And so this is the Avalanche sweater. And it's a chunky weight sweater. And it's knit on size 9 needles, at least that's what I knitted on in order to obtain gauge. I think it took me about a week. And it was a busy week. It was so fast to knit, and it is such a beautiful pattern. So you have a few different size options for this. It goes from an extra small to a double XL, and in there there's two different mediums, so there's a medium 1 and a medium 2. I chose to knit the medium 2 size just in case. So the medium 2 says it takes about 940 yards, and I had 7 hanks of this Ella Rae Chunky Superwash Merino. I think they're about 134 yards per ball, and this is just about what I have left. I did make a pretty big swatch, and there is a little bit, I think there's less than this left in from the balls that I used, the sleeves. Each sleeve took about an entire ball to knit. So yeah, seven hanks of the Ella Rae Chunky Merino, which was 134 yards to knit this sweater, was perfect, which I was a little bit worried about because I couldn't find this. She found this in a local yarn store in Alaska, and I couldn't find this anywhere in Seattle, so I was really hoping that I wouldn't run out of yarn, and I didn't, thank goodness. Actually, I was so worried about running out of yarn that I knit the sleeves. So I did it's a top down, so I did the raglan increases and separated for the sleeves, and then knit the sleeves before I did the rest of the body. And that's not something I've done before. I don't know if I would do it again, because once it came time to knit the body, I had a lot of fabric that I was turning around, and when I knit sleeves, I don't twist them around and around, and I just, you know, I knit them, and then I just pull the sleeve back around rather than pulling the whole body around, if that makes any sense at all. It was a little bit more difficult to do it that way, but I was glad I did, because I thought if worst came to worst, I could just crop it a little bit and it wouldn't be so bad. But I didn't want to have the sleeves be too short. I guess that's my thinking, is a little bit of a cropped body is better than too short sleeves. Anyway, I didn't have to worry about that because I had plenty of yarn to knit the body. If anybody asks you to knit them a sweater, I would highly recommend considering this pattern, because from what I've seen, it is very flattering on a lot of different body types. It has a pretty good range of sizes. They could go a little bit bigger, but yeah, I think this is just a really great pattern. And it's in chunky weight, so it knits up very fast. It did take me a little bit to get used to knitting the chunkier weight. It's just a little bit heavier and a tiny bit harder on your hands than like a worsted or lighter weight yarn. But once I kind of got accustomed to dealing with the extra bulk, it was fine. It didn't like cause me any wrist problems or anything like that. So let's try this one on. This is still a tiny bit wet. I blocked this maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and it still is just the tiniest bit damp. But yeah, so this is the medium 2 is for a 42-inch bust. For my size, I usually follow the directions for like 34 to 36-inch bust. But I like my sweaters. I've learned that I like my sweaters to have a lot of positive ease. If this was for me, I might knit it a size or 2 smaller, but I would be very happy if this is how it turned out. For a chunkier weight sweater, I think it's kind of nice to have it have that little bit of extra positive ease, just so, I don't know, when it feels like if it's chunky weight and it's tight on your body, it's not the most comfortable thing. Let's talk about this lace and these cables. So it's not the most complicated lace, but it does keep it interesting and it's fun to knit. I love patterns that repeat like this, so you can kind of get a really good sense of the progress that you're making while you're knitting it. And it's very easy to just say, oh, I'm just going to do one more pattern repeat, one more pattern repeat. It felt like it went very quickly, and I appreciate that. So it does show what you're wearing underneath, so if that's not for you, that's something to keep in mind, but it's so good. Such a good sweater. Now all that's left to do is send them to their new homes. And if I hadn't knit so many sweaters for myself this year, that would probably be a lot harder. If you're keeping track, that was sweater 12 and 13 for 2018. I have one more sweater that is on the needles that is not here right now, but by the time you see this, hopefully I will have finished my holiday sweater. So maybe I will have 14 sweaters finished by the end of 2018. If not, 13 sweaters is pretty good. I will take that. My goal was 12. I currently have 13 finished. If I don't get that 14th one finished, I won't beat myself up. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in to my last podcast episode of 2018. Maybe I've inspired you to knit someone else a sweater in 2019. I hope that I do get a chance to knit another sweater for somebody else in 2019. I am not going to try to knit another 12 sweaters in the coming year. I've been there, I've seen it, I have the sweaters, we're done with that goal. It's in the books, but we'll see what 2019 has in store for us. Again, thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year and happy knitting. I'll see you in 2019! And that will make 15 sweaters. 15? 12, 13, 14.